As you know, this is a 7-week online class, which is a very short period of time to cover a very large topic. We will do our best to give a good balance of the many theories underlying the practice of conflict resolution, as well as give some opportunities to practice the skills of conflict resolution. Now, there are several other names that you may be familiar with. Conflict or dispute management. Those are very popular terms these days, and as we will see as we go through the course, that the management of how a dispute is resolved is very much a factor in which process is ultimately selected and how it's designed. And that gets down to the point of even who is the manager. Is it the disputing parties? Is it the third party, an arbitrator, a mediator who is the manager? Or is it a combination of all of those people? We will be spending a lot of time on the management of resolving disputes. Simply dispute resolution is another synonym for conflict resolution. And then ADR, which you're probably very familiar with. Originally, the A stood for alternate or alternative dispute resolution. It can also stand for appropriate, and these days most people probably think it stands for a little of both. Now, there are several everyday things that people do that are technically processes under the heading of conflict resolution. Think about children and how they might resolve a dispute on the playground. They might hold their breath or they might throw things. Not recommended for most grown-ups or in business settings, and certainly not on the construction site. There are some other everyday actions which for very small problems, and again usually more in the personal arena than the business arena, but keep it in perspective. Now and then tiny problems might be better resolved with these small everyday actions. Avoiding the problem, giving in, or changing a habit or a routine. Those are all technically processes of dispute resolution. But more commonly acknowledged processes are arguing, negotiating, filing a lawsuit. That is very typical. Someone breached a contract or didn't perform the work they were supposed to. What do? You file a lawsuit. And then there is ADR. And ADR is often the next step in the process. It was originally thought of as an alternative to litigation, but more as a formal process and adversarial in nature, with a winner and a loser, and someone going home happy and someone going home upset. So again, ADR was originally thought of as an adversarial process, but something other than litigation. Now, it evolved over years to include more processes that were less what people might describe as headbanging. Those included an assisted negotiation and mediation. And as those processes took off and more industries used them and found some success, there was more study and change. But that study and change had a temporary setback on the industries, and this new alternative was being thought of as a soft alternative. And many people felt that using ADR was a sign of weakness. If I say I want to try to resolve this by settling it instead of suing you or taking you before an arbitrator, well then I must be weak and the other side is going to jump all over me. But with more time and more reflection and more case data, it was found that that wasn't really the case, that if people were truly focused on resolving the problem, that these other forms of ADR, and in particular mediation, were not a sign of weakness, and in many ways they were a sign of strength and a sign of thoughtful, smart business strategy, because the disputing parties were putting the business and the end result first and looking for a solution as opposed to spending a lot of time and money in an adversarial forum beating each other up. So again, we come back to the appropriateness of the alternative dispute resolution. Now, within the world of conflict resolution, there are many, many different formal processes. We will spend many weeks discussing these in much more detail. Arbitration, mini-trials, mediation, dispute review boards, early neutral evaluation, or ENE as you may hear it referred to, partnering, and negotiation are just some of the ones that fall within acceptable and appropriate conflict resolution, and the ones listed here are used most frequently in the construction setting. But all of those things have many different variations and different meanings. Even within a certain law firm or a certain business, different people may have different interpretations of those very processes. And those different expectations arise from a number of factors. It could be the industry people are in. Are they used to dealing with construction disputes or employment disputes or patent disputes? The industry itself can have a big effect on how people perceive what an arbitration is or what early neutral evaluation is. Experience, which could be how long someone has been in business, or it could be their experience going through the actual process. That can be a tremendous factor in setting future expectations for conflict resolution. And also location. There's both the domestic and the international view, but from state to state, many things vary, and even from city to city, there are different expectations. So pause for a moment and think of some of the other factors which may influence how people define dispute resolution and the processes which fall under it, and make a note of those different factors. You're going to come back to them again and again, and it's always a key part of your preparation for effective dispute resolution. Now, as we go through this course, there are going to be some areas where there are some very clear boundaries and a few black and white answers, but much more of this course and the business of ADR is a big gray area where you have to really think through the different options and the factual setting at hand to come up with the appropriate answer. And many people can come up with many answers which all may be correct. But again, come back to the core theme that to have effective and productive conflict resolution, you're going to need to look at expectations. So investigate perceptions and clarify and establish expectations. And this concludes the introduction section. In a moment, we will take a look at the history of ADR in the construction industry.